Story 1. I am sad, but I think it is appropriate. My company offers me the opportunity to move to Canada, but it comes with less pay, and my wife would need to find a new job. I am seriously considering it, though. Story 2. I am a white male and a United States citizen. I have traveled all over the world, including the Soviet Union when it existed. In general, I have found that border control personnel are not the friendliest, but they are generally businesslike, impersonal, and efficient. You show your passport and they wave you through. Except in the United States. They are inefficient, rude, and generally unpleasant. They are like the Vogons from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but with an extra dose of sadism and inefficiency added. This is based on my return trips in 2022 and 2024. I would hate to imagine what it is like now, so I think these travel advisories are worth considering. Once you are inside the country, I think you would have a decent enough time, but I would suggest taking your tourism funds somewhere else for now. It is a big world. As Douglas Adams might say, the United States needs to hang a sign outside its door. Come back when we're sane. Story 3. Good idea. This country right now is crazier than a peanut farm. I live here and don't want to travel anywhere in this country. Story 4. 25% of Americans will say, "Good. This is what I voted for. Leave us alone." 25% of Americans will say, "Good. I didn't vote for this, but if you make it hurt, maybe we'll get some actual change around here." 50% of Americans don't know about it or don't care enough to form an opinion. Story 5. Have they? In the reports I have seen, Germany explicitly states that their new travel advisories are not travel warnings. Story 6. I read the United Kingdom warning. It was quite clear that you need to meet the United States entry requirements and that they are strictly enforced. Story 7. Clarification. They did not issue travel warnings. They clarified that every paper must be meticulously filled out and that the border authorities have the irreversible final say. These papers must be meticulously completed because of arbitrary border authorities banning and incarcerating people for no valid reason. As a result, the papers need to be filled out so thoroughly that the authorities do not even begin to remove you from the queues for any reason. Story 8. I hope more countries issue travel warnings. In fact, I wish they would all just ban or boycott travel to the United States. It will take a significant economic impact to reach many supporters of Trump. Story 9. It makes sense to me. If immigration officers are deporting people because they criticize Trump on social media, it is not a safe place to visit. It is oddly reminiscent of Russia. Story 10. They are right to do so. I have considered leaving the United States since the Trump administration has made it clear how they feel about Latinos. Sadly, I don't think I will be able to. To the Latinos who voted for Trump, you have betrayed us and yourselves. Story 11. I live here, and I don't feel safe anymore. I am renewing my passport just in case, and I did not feel safe mailing my old passport and my birth certificate to my government. I wondered if they would simply keep both and stop renewing passports. I ordered a new copy of my birth certificate and am waiting to receive that before I apply. It is unfathomable that a native-born American citizen feels this way. I don't think my fears are unfounded or illogical. The inmates are in charge of the asylum here. Story 12. Out of curiosity, based on your general reading of Reddit posts, what do you think the answer will be here versus the voting majority of Americans? Story 13. The travel warnings are understandable. They advise their citizens traveling to the United States not to overstay their visas, not to provide inaccurate purposes for their visits, and not to commit crimes, as these actions could lead to detention and deportation. This approach is reasonable for both the United States and for countries advising their citizens on proper conduct while abroad. Story 14. Good. Stay away. You deserve better than how the current administration has spoken about and treated you. Story 15. It makes complete sense. It is obviously sad to see, but we are the antagonists here, so I do not understand why anyone would be surprised that governments are warning their citizens away. I wish I could escape. Story 16. I think it is very appropriate. Several Europeans have been detained or worse for nothing at all. We are in a difficult situation right now. I would avoid the United States at all costs if I were not a citizen. Story 17. We're like a crazed lunatic with a gun who thinks the earth might be flat on the world stage lately, so I don't blame anyone. Story 18. My wife works in human resources at an American law firm with offices in several countries. Right now, they are trying to figure out what to tell employees who have to travel for work. I wish them luck in finding better advice than don't. Story 19. Political unrest, several separate disease outbreaks, and multiple reports of foreigners being unlawfully detained by United States law enforcement are concerning. I certainly wouldn't want to travel to a nation experiencing these issues, and it makes sense that other governments would advise their citizens to avoid doing so. Story 20. It is sad how far we have fallen, how incredibly damaged our international reputation and credibility have become in just 2 months. Millions of us saw this coming and unfortunately could not stop it. Story 21. Good. It's not safe here. Accidentally getting the wrong visa could lead to detention for several weeks. If you have brown skin and a tattoo, you may be sent to detention centers in El Salvador. Story 22. Although I sometimes forget, I try to regularly check the news from other countries. I believe the reporters view the United States holistically and provide a more nuanced story of where the country stands. That said, it greatly concerns me that authorities in these respected countries discourage their citizens from visiting the United States. Story 23. I find it amusing, especially since Americans often visit other countries that have travel warnings for much more serious issues. Story 24. So what? I bet you didn't know that even Canada has a travel advisory for Denmark, Germany, and the United Kingdom. Travel advisories are quite common. Story 25. Good. They need to. The news right now is horrible. As bad as Trump was in his first term, this is way worse and we are only 2 months in. The Democrats are hopeless. It is bad. I am legitimately worried about the future of the planet. Story 26. This subreddit has poor moderation and is filled with thoughtless questions aimed at gaining karma. I look forward to when these artificial intelligence companies realize that Reddit's training data leads their bots to become uncontrollable. Story 27. I do not blame them at all. America is in a dire state of chaos right now. I would not visit here either if I were in their position. Story 28. We are facing significant challenges. The former president may deny the situation, but the rest of the world does not have to accept it. Though I did not support his candidacy, I, along with many others, am experiencing the consequences. Therefore, any efforts to ensure that those who supported him face similar hardships are acceptable to me. Story 29. I believe the leadership of my country is failing, and the travel warnings are justified. I feel angry and embarrassed, so I am leaving the country for most of the summer to focus on my mental health. Story 30. I mean, it's justified, but it seemed to me it's all the same situation that applies to Americans when we go to Europe or any other country. I don't understand why following a country's immigration laws is a big deal, especially since it's not really news when other countries remove people who are in the country illegally. Story 31. Seriously, do not travel here. Do not buy products made here. Tell your countries to find other trade partners. The United States is a dangerous place. Story 32. I am glad their government is taking care of them and informing them. This is not a good place to be at the moment. Story 33. Understandably, they do not want their citizens to disappear for having the audacity to vacation in the United States. Story 34. From what I can tell, not too many Americans outside of Reddit care. I follow some camping groups, and one that I saw gaining traction was the hope that campgrounds would be a little emptier. Story 35. I have family who lives outside the United States. They were supposed to visit soon, but I do not think it is a good idea. I believe the warnings are justified. Story 36. I am Canadian and wondering why my government hasn't issued a statement. After reading this story, I am concerned. Story 37. The warning issued was a reminder to obey United States immigration laws, as they will be enforced. I do not have a problem with that. As an American, whenever I travel, I would not even think about disregarding the local immigration laws. I am a guest in their country, and the least I can do is follow their laws. I do not understand what the big deal is. Story 38. You ask the average American? They probably don't care too much. But Reddit? Reddit will show you the answers from some of the most self-critical people out there. There are numerous issues to address in the United States, but you'll find white people thinking they live in a third world country on this site. Story 39. It is absolutely justified. Story 40. This is the 14th different. How much do you dislike Trump? Post I've seen in my feed today. Reddit, please stop showing this to me. I understand you dislike Trump. Story 41. Honestly, what do Americans expect? Canadians are described as unpleasant, and he hasn't said anything positive about any country. He has imposed tariffs. What exactly is expected of other countries now? Story 42. Completely justified. I don't even feel safe here. We are paying for the mistakes of one individual and his group of misguided followers. Story 43. I am somewhat surprised they did not warn people beforehand. I used to tell my friends visiting the United States to stay in or near cities. If you believe developing countries are corrupt, you have never been pulled over in rural Mississippi with a wallet full of money and a unique accent. Story 44. Few will want to travel to the United States if there is the slightest chance of being imprisoned for making comments against the president. Story 45. I'm not going to the United States if Donald Trump or his team is in power. It's a shame because Hawaii is one of my favorite places that I have visited. Story 46. I think the world needs to turn its back on the Fourth Reich. They are going through some challenges and may feel embarrassed. It is better if we look away. Story 47. My only question is, only them. The entire world needs to treat us as a pariah state. Our current government cannot be trusted by anyone. Story 48. I feel ashamed of my country every day. We are better than this. The warnings are deserved. We are on a downward path and it is a dangerous one. Story 49. You are posting on Reddit. Therefore, you are always going to get the liberal point of view, which in this particular instance is a minority. Story 50. It's embarrassing, but not so much for me directly, since I voted for the nice lady and not for Putin. Story 51. I am Canadian and have never understood the appeal of America. I am really tired of American apologists. It's old news, we don't care. Most Americans are overweight with fake lips, eyes, and hair. Nothing about America feels genuine or authentic. If you want to visit one of the most beautiful islands in the world, head to Newfoundland and Labrador. You are welcome. Story 52. For the record, Canada did not have to issue a travel warning. Canadians have already abandoned traveling to the United States. Story 53. I don't care. It's just politics. It has zero impact as it is just a warning. It has less meaning than a viral meme would have had. Story 54. Travel warning for non-citizens? It's dangerous. I'm scared to be here, and I am a citizen. They just shipped over 200 people to a facility in El Salvador without trial or conviction. Those people will likely suffer in that prison. Story 55. They are not wrong. You would have to be irrational to come here from almost anywhere else at this point, especially if you appear foreign. Story 56. I am completely unsurprised. I wouldn't come here if I weren't a citizen. I don't like much of what is happening, even though I am. Story 57. I am Australian living in Switzerland. I plan to visit some friends in Washington, D.C. early this summer. I want to go this year before the United States becomes Gilead. Story 58. I don't care. I have other pressing issues regardless of whether wealthy Europeans come here for vacation or business. Story 59. I don't blame them at all, and I think it's a smart move. It is even evidence-based. We are apparently incarcerating people for indeterminate periods for visa issues that could have been resolved with a couple of phone calls. Even if these were real problems, there is no justification for the lengthy detentions. They could easily put them on the next available flight. As the saying goes, the cruelty is the point. It is foolish to come here now. I have lived here my whole life, but if I could afford to leave and thrive elsewhere, I would not hesitate. Story 60. I have been giving travel advisories to my family for the last few years. I only go to Florida for funerals now, which is disappointing because I love St. Augustine. Story 61. It is wise and appropriate for them to do that, considering how people are treated for minor entry issues. Story 62. Continue issuing the warnings and discourage people from visiting. I want these members of the Republican Party to be remembered in history for damaging the economy, in addition to all of the other irrational actions they are currently taking. Story 63. It is unfortunate that we are at this stage, but I am glad that good people are aware of the potential risks of coming here right now. Things seem to become increasingly chaotic every day. Moreover, many supporters of the former president distrust, fear, and dislike outsiders, even those who support their businesses. The national parks are likely to be in disarray soon, and the major cities will be filled with individuals whose economic lifelines have been severed, leading to desperation. Consider visiting Canada. It is beautiful, and many of the people are genuinely kind and affected by U.S. policies. They would be eager to care for you and share their country with you. Story 64. Considering all the turmoil surrounding the Trump presidency, I understand it. I am ashamed of the United States, not the country itself, but that segment of it that was so biased against anything they did not understand that they elected a dishonest, racist hypocrite to the presidency. George Washington is rolling in his grave. Story 65. It will likely affect tourist towns to some extent. Besides that, it appears to be political posturing that will likely be quietly reversed within the year. Story 66. I'm not surprised. Their leaders care about their citizens' well-being. We have a criminal leading us here in America, and he is so corrupt that I don't feel safe anymore. I may flee the country soon. Story 67. I did not vote for Trump and dislike him more than the average person, but I do not really care about travel warnings being issued. It is not like I can do anything about the situation. Story 68. German authorities did not issue a formal travel warning. It is an additional notice in the official travel advice stating that even if you have a visa, it does not guarantee entry. They may refuse entry and could detain you before doing so. Even Venezuela has only issued a partial travel warning. Story 69. Honestly, it's legitimate. The travel warnings indicate that you must be extra careful about complying with immigration regulations. Story 70. I believe all countries should take action because the United States is no longer willing to ensure visitors' safety and protect them from inappropriate arrests and detentions. I am uncertain how the United States will continue to host the World Cup or the Olympics under this administration. Story 71. We are literally disappearing people off the streets just because they might be from a different country. If you care about your safety and the safety of your loved ones, do not come to the United States. Story 72. Congratulations on avoiding this overwhelming situation until it is over. I am leaving for a holiday in France tomorrow and secretly hope we cannot return home. I hope to find my way in a new place. Story 73. It's smart. Why would you want to come here anymore? I certainly don't want to be here. Story 74. Sad and angry, though not at them. Just another way the Cheeto administration is destroying this country by alienating us from our allies. Story 75. I'm concerned about interstate travel at this point. I have been stopped at immigration checkpoints hundreds of miles from any border before. I can imagine the officers are even more aggressive now. I do not blame any country for issuing travel warnings. Story 76. I'm an American planning a summer road trip to Canada. I have no party affiliation. I'm having second thoughts about my trip due to the current state of affairs. Like most Americans, I feel embarrassed and humiliated by the current leadership. If you're Canadian, am I overthinking this? Can I travel by car into your country without fear of retaliation if I have New York plates on my car? Story 77. I have been ashamed of being an American for months. Their travel warnings are effective, and I wish more countries would implement similar measures. I would also support sanctions and even an embargo on this country. The individuals who support these views will only change their stance if their lives are directly and negatively affected, so I do not mind struggling if it has a chance of breaking the fascist hold that these groups have on our nation. Story 78. I think it is wise. I recommend that more countries take similar actions if they care about the safety of their citizens. Conditions are challenging here in the United States, and they are likely to deteriorate further. It is better to be safe than sorry. Story 79. Boycott us, please, and protect yourselves. The only reason you should be coming over is if you are ready to volunteer military help against a fascist coup. In my opinion, Trump has now censored the press, kidnapped people to be tortured without due process, jailed those he disagrees with without charges filed, openly defied court orders to detain hundreds in concentration camps, stated he wants to abduct citizens and torture them if they disagree with him, claimed that boycotting and protesting are illegal, bullied our allies, and worked to harm the actual people and parks in our country. The list goes on. We are here protesting, writing representatives, and boycotting companies controlled by American billionaires and those who donated to or support Trump. Anything you can do to help is appreciated. Story 80. What do you expect us to think? I moved to Europe 5 years ago because I saw this coming and I had an opportunity to do so. It's going to get worse. You cannot fault other countries for protecting their own. Buckle up. These are the early days. Story 81. It gives me a deep sense of shame when I think that my fellow Americans voted for this. I've spent most of my life believing that, as Americans, we shared a common understanding regarding the purpose of government, the separation of powers, and the rule of law. Sure, there was corruption, but it was supposed to be a bad thing. I have come to realize that my family and neighbors think it is acceptable to support a dishonest individual for the highest office in the land, aiming to dismantle the values this country holds dear. It's akin to discovering that your stew is spoiled. It's also troubling to see that many Americans who are horrified by this situation lack the knowledge on how to address it. How bad does it have to get? I have been writing to my representatives, but I'm not making any progress. This concerns me about what the next step should be. I believe people are right in speculating about the possibility of martial law being declared next month, which would lead to unpredictable circumstances. If I were in Germany, Denmark, or the United Kingdom, I would advise my citizens to exercise caution as well. Story 82. I don't really care. No offense, but what a foreign citizen can or can't do means basically nothing to me. Our reputation wasn't exactly stellar before this, so it's not like we look worse. We have our own serious problems to deal with. Not having some German tourists isn't going to make me cry. Story 83. It is unfortunate, but this is the consequence of having a leader who does not understand the impact of his words and actions. One cannot be in charge of the most powerful military in the world and joke about annexing territory. People are being unlawfully detained, treated poorly, and deported. This situation is no different from the behavior of China and Russia. As a result, we should expect other countries to see us in a similar light. Story 84. I am an expatriate living overseas who plan to take my children back for a year sometime in the next 4 years. That is now canceled. I anticipated this outcome and view the United States as unsafe more than ever. Every measure of freedom, personal liberty, social justice, and civil rights has rapidly declined. Observing tourists being detained and deported is a clear warning sign that it is not safe to travel back. The current travel warnings are justified and represent just the beginning of more to come, in my opinion. It is a shame, and I never thought I would see the United States like this, but here we are, with the country well on its way to becoming an authoritarian regime. Story 85. They make sense. I wouldn't travel here at all during his presidency if I were them. I hate it here right now. Waking up every morning to some devastating new tantrum he's had depresses me. It's disheartening that so many people in my own family voted for this individual. Story 86. I am an American who has lived overseas for the last 2 decades in the United Kingdom. I have been away long enough that I no longer see the world the same way as my family. I have adopted many of my new country's sensibilities and am quite firmly anti-Trump, unlike my family, who lean toward conservative views. I have the opportunity to fly my family over next February, but I refuse to bring my spouse or children around any of them or into a country as volatile as the United States currently is. With the travel restrictions in place and the fact that I am transgender, detransitioned due to life-threatening medical issues, and very left-leaning, I would either be denied entry into the country due to my passport or arrested upon arrival due to my outspoken views. Story 87. It makes me feel envious. I miss when people dedicated their lives and careers to public service were allowed to do their jobs. Story 88. Add Australia to the list. It's very sad, but I think we are now officially a developing country with a developed attitude. Story 89. They have good sense. My daughter works in the United Kingdom, and I question whether she should come home next Christmas. She is a native-born citizen with a passport. Story 90. The United States generates $2 trillion in tourism annually, and we are approaching the tourist season. Perhaps if the governors of states like Florida participate, it could make a difference. The only positive aspect is that we may not have enough funds to support the military. Story 91. From what I see in the news, I cannot blame them. The warnings have been well earned for the leaders in power. Story 92. Those warnings are not harsh enough, and more countries should issue them. If you are not born in the United States to citizens of the United States, you should stay away as long as the Trump administration is in power. Story 93. We are dismayed that we have permitted a criminal to damage our standing in the world. They are taking the necessary actions. We cannot be trusted until we remove the criminal and determine how to prevent this in the future. Story 94. Interesting, but the United States has warnings about many countries in Europe, including France and Germany. Exercise increased caution in Germany due to terrorism. Story 95. Germany has not issued a travel warning, just an advisory. It is unfortunate that the United States has deteriorated in reputation in a short period, prompting other countries to caution their citizens. Story 96. I think it was the Denmark warning specifically about transgender people entering the United States. Unfortunately, it is accurate. Our government is treating our own transgender citizens poorly, so it would be unwise for a transgender tourist to visit. Story 97. The next step is preventing the rest of us from leaving. Also, don't forget that France sent out a pamphlet on how to prepare a go-bag. Story 98. I am shocked and appalled that our government has forced our longtime allies to do this. I feel they are totally justified. I am ashamed to be an American more than ever. We are continually hostile toward the rest of the world with our endless wars and meddling. This is disgraceful. Story 99. Let's do the math. Leave the United States, where there is border control, no diversity, equity, and inclusion, and no wokeness, to go to a country where your kids can be harmed or kidnapped while you must be very careful about what you post online. Yes, I am sure Americans are devastated. Story 100. I don't feel much about it. It's not that I don't care. It's just that amidst all the chaos and horror we are experiencing, having fewer tourists is hardly significant. I feel like I have run out of feelings. However, I suppose it serves as more validation that I should be horrified and terrified every waking moment. So great. Story 101. The issue I can't understand is the behavior of our immigration agents, which seems to send a clear message. The woman who was detained for 2 weeks from Canada had a clerical error. Even if those officials were acting within the law, they did not need to hold her for that long. What exactly is the message we are conveying? Why would we want to upset Canada and Canadians so much? Story 102. I warned my green card employees to consider not leaving the country because they could be in danger. I strongly dislike this individual and his supporters. I wish I could leave. I believe that every country should stop visiting and purchasing our products. Story 103. I think it's very sad that it has come to this, but I don't blame them. We Americans aren't even safe in our own country right now. Story 104. You know, folks, it's so sad. We had a strong economy and good jobs, and now look at it. It's a disaster. People are asking, how did this happen? I tell them it's because of the false information spread by the media. They never tell the truth. It's disheartening. We could have been great, but now it feels like we are in a difficult situation. Many people are suffering due to poor decisions made by foreign governments interfering with our security. It's truly unfortunate. Story 105. It is sad but necessary. I do not recognize my country anymore. However, I will continue to protest this administration and applaud everyone participating in the boycott. We deserve it. I hope to travel to other countries, and I hope you are okay with that. I would rather spend my money elsewhere as well. Story 106. A necessary precaution considering that Trump is erratic and unpredictable, determined to pick a fight with almost anyone except Putin. Story 107. It's well-deserved. I have been opposed to Trump since day one. I am returning from a spring break holiday in England with my family. I am almost worried that I will get pulled aside when clearing customs in New York tomorrow because of my opposition to Trump. Story 108. They aren't wrong at all. Things are not safe here for anyone, especially foreigners. Genuinely, don't take what is happening here lightly. However, the lack of travelers will also help us in positive ways. Hitting those responsible in their wallets is the only way they listen. Please, if you had travel plans that were paid for to the United States, cancel them. If the airline or hotel asks you for a reason for cancellation, tell them the current administration is making you feel unsafe to travel here. This is one way to help those of us trying to reclaim our country. Story 109. I think it is completely understandable and a good thing they are issuing warnings. I am ashamed of my country right now, and I am ashamed they elected such a horrible, traitorous person. It is not safe for others to come here, so I suggest keeping the warnings in place until things improve. Story 110. It frightens me that places dependent on tourism may begin to decline. What if there were a civil war? Would any foreign countries come to assist? Story 111. Sad but grateful that no one will travel here to witness this. This is bittersweet. I will miss music tours like Lorena McKennett. She doesn't have a US tour this year, probably due to the travel warnings. Story 112. My wife wanted to visit Colorado and the national parks in 2 years for her 50th birthday. I think we'll wait a few more years. Story 113. My son, who is American, and his wife, who is Thai, plan to visit California in April. I live in Michigan. All their documents will be up to date, but I am honestly scared for them. Story 114. If my family weren't here, I would already be gone. Staying away is the smart move. The best way to encourage Trump voters to change is unfortunately going to require serious financial strain. So I say stay away and avoid purchasing US products. Story 115. I do not care. It does not affect my life or the lives of my family. This is a quick reaction to a temporary situation. Global politics and the news cycle evolve so fast that in the next week, they will find something else to be offended by. The vast majority of regular working Americans will get up, go to work, and live their lives pretty much as we have been. Let's be honest about this travel warning from these 3 countries. For us, it is like warnings from a couple of states and, in the long run, doesn't mean much. Story 116. I love being trapped in my own worst nightmare. Invest in pharmaceutical companies because we are all about to stock up on antidepressants before the government outlaws them. Story 117. I cannot blame them, but it is humiliating and horrifying that it has come to this. It is frustrating that some individuals have put us in this position and that they do not seem to care. Story 118. Please do not come. Do not give these ghouls another warm body to manipulate, another reason to do whatever they want without consequences, or another opportunity to be cruelly smug. It is chaotic here. Please do not come. Story 119. Ashamed because we are supposed to be a good and decent country based on the principle of liberty. However, I am not surprised because the Republican Party has transformed our once great nation into a place of fear and division. Story 120. There is no travel warning from Germany, but I believe there should be. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.